you freaking sucker punch me and then you leave for a week. He's like, I'm so glad the guys were here. Yeah.
He said that. He's like, dude, I felt like sucker. He's like, I don't know, like it just because he talked about that, and I'm like, oh, good.
Well, that was a heavy thing though. That as he was talking about that about his wife, I'm like, wow, she's giving you that gift, and you're like, thank you very much. Like that
Oh,
was
I'm gonna take
woo.
advantage. I know.
Even when I was saying it, I'm like, that kind of hurts, you know. But
Yeah,
yeah, he's doing some deep thinking, which
it's good.
I'm proud of him for.
Well,
He,
and it's like you said, it's like okay, if you can do that, and that's what we were trying to say. Like, look, dude, look how far you've come.
mm-hmm.
I mean, you're trying to compare yourself to everybody else who's gone through a lot more, and just different stuff. But it's like, no, you have to recognize if you're having these thoughts and you're thinking this way, that means you're making progress.
That means you're making progress.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's when you avoid it and you don't want to think about it and you're like, show up every week and you're like, oh, yeah, nothing. I didn't think about it.
didn't think about that.
It's that avoidant.
We definitely have some of those guys, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I've been that guy.
Dude. I'm bummed we don't get to use our music, man.
It sucks.
We'll find something else. In 3, 2, 1. Hello, listeners. Welcome back to the Agents of Recovery podcast. So happy to have you here. One of the two hosts, I'm Coach Blue Robinson, and this is my sidekick, Wendell Wood. How you doing, buddy?
I am here. I'm awake and just did a little 3-mile little walk hike with Earl.
Nice.
So yeah.
I love it, man. You guys getting up bright and early, even it's 0 dark 30 out there, huh?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Getting the group back together, starting a little
bringing the band back together.
Yeah, exactly.
I dig it, man. That's freaking awesome. Well, good. Listeners, you might have noticed a little bit of a change. We have been spanked by Spotify. I can't use our awesome bumper music. So this might be a little bit different for you, but we're still the same podcast. Right?
Yeah.
We're not changing anything other than that music. But nonetheless, we're here to bring you some advice, maybe some camaraderie, some support to get you to that starting line of recovery and beyond. I've really enjoyed, and we've been getting a lot of good feedback. So please jump on there and review the podcast. We'd love to have you talk a little bit about you. Rate that podcast, give us some stars. It helps get the podcast out a little bit further and helps you kind of connect with us. If you want more than just that little window into our hearts with the rating system there, jump on the School app. We have a lot of good content on there, specifically some stuff from the Agents of Recovery, and so much more. So that'll all be in the description in the show notes. So go down there and check it out. Wendell, one of our favorite days, I know here, are the Q&A sessions. Right, lots of questions from our listeners, and it was great walking around New York City last week. Had an opportunity to talk to several guys about the Agents of Recovery. And this is a question coming directly from a guy named Pete from New York. He said he's going to be listening. So I said, well, I'll plan on doing a Q&A session and let's talk about it. He struggled with a lot of behavioral addiction, specifically pornography and gambling, right? There's a lot of gambling, like I think newness right now, where people can get on and project, things in the news. Will the price of gas drop, or will it go up? And he got himself into a pickle. He got into some financial difficulties because of this. And he talked about like the problem he's having is what's behind all this. He says, well, what does my relapse pattern reveal about my unmet needs or the hidden triggers? And I think this question moves beyond just the focus of failure and gets into context, relationships, shame, loneliness, boredom, and pressure. But let's start with Pete's question about what is these relapses? What are these compulsions? What do they say about unmet needs? What do you think? I mean, that's a big question, but it is. There's something hiding behind that we're suppressing. So let's kick this off.
Oh, it's there's so much, like you said, to that. And without knowing all the specifics and everything else, obviously just speaking in generalities, but there is an unmet need, right?
Mhm.
There's something that's not quite feeling seen, heard, understood.
Exactly.
Right? Or some sort of need of like, for me, I think initially it's like, oh, being seen, right?
Hmm.
That's the one that really pops into my head. And like, how do we do these things? So we'll do things to feel some sort of success, right? And in order to do that, you have to feel, and that's again to feel seen or to feel noticed, right? To feel understood. Um, and so I don't know exactly, Pete, what you're going through or what you're experiencing. And yet I would just say be curious about it. If you can sit long enough in that pain, in those thoughts, I think you're on the right path, first of
Hmm.
all. The fact that you're thinking about it, the fact that you're like trying to go a little bit deeper and recognize that, when you go to those behaviors, those behavioral addictions, all those things, gambling, pornography, drinking, whatever it is,
Yeah.
whatever that behavior is, you're trying to do that in order to regulate
Hmm.
and trying to figure out, there's something else deeper, something behind it. And so, what is that thing? Only you can know.
Only he'll know.
Only you know.
Yeah,
And so you have to sit in it,
you do.
and it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you were talking about something just before we hit record about just sitting in it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the only way to discover some of these unmet needs is to not run away from it. And it really is, guys, figuratively and metaphorically, sitting in it, right?
Yeah. It really is. Yeah.
It sucks, but we have to.
No, and it does, and it's uncomfortable because we're not taught
Hmm.
how to do it, right? If we were taught how to do it, if we were taught how to sit in it and to like just, our brains are like the most, you think about AI right now, right?
Yeah.
AI can, it blows your mind, all the stuff that it can come up with. You can say,
Hmm.
hey, write the lyrics to this song or do this, or, and AI can come up with anything, right? And
Hmm.
and you think of how powerful that
It's
is.
funny you say that because literally walking around New York all week last week, I heard this song on social media. And dude, it was on my rotation list the whole time I was walking around. I repeated that song a million times. Come to find out, 100% AI
Yeah.
and brilliant.
Yeah.
So yeah, keep going
But
because
that's what
it's
it is,
yeah,
right? I mean, you have AI can do all these things, right? And yet, at its core, what is AI? It was developed by somebody
by
else,
somebody else.
right?
Hmm.
And so our brains are more powerful than AI. And it's like, wait, no, maybe not, but they are. It's true, right?
Hmm.
Because it was somebody's brain who invented AI, right? And came
Hmm.
up with this stuff and computers and algorithms and everything else that allows it to think through all these patterns and sift through all this information quickly. Um, and yet we go to AI because we don't want to sit and we don't want to like go through the entire process of like trying to create something or to, we want these get rich quick schemes or fix it now or the shortcuts, right? To get to where we want to be. And yet the real answer is dialing all that back
Right.
and sitting in that emotion, sitting in those moments when you're like, okay, I'm not sure. Like I recognize something's not right, right? And so I have an option now. I can either sit with that and try to be curious and say, I wonder what's not right, or when have I felt this way before? Or we can go, okay, I'm going to try to fix it. And I want that checklist, that magical checklist that like, if I can just check these boxes here, that's going to take care of it. Right.
Absolutely.
And so do we do the quick stuff or do we sit in that emotion? Do we sit with the uncomfortable things and let our brains, which are more powerful than, and our bodies, which know the answers, it's in
Yeah.
there, it's inside of us, but it's uncomfortable to sit in that.
Yeah, you remember when we were kids? We're both 50 now, but we can remember some of these things. They had those little Mad Lib things
Oh
where
yeah.
you'd have a story, but you had to fill in the adjective and the noun. I think this is kind of the same thing. Pete, if you don't know what we're talking about, Google it. I'm sure you can find it. But I look at this and I think when we have these unmet needs and we have an act out behavior, we look at it as failure. So every blank placeholder for a word turns into failure.
Yeah.
So I think one of the biggest things that I love what Wendell just said too, sitting in it, but then being able to also name it, right? Because it's got to move to like maybe a context of something that you feel unresolved, or
Yeah.
maybe it's a relationship, right? Like if you're having problems with your wife because you can't communicate or something, or maybe it's loneliness or boredom, pressure, whatever. when you can start labeling these things for what they are instead of the one word of failure every time have an act out behavior, it's a failure. You'll never get to it unless you dig down a little bit.
Yeah.
So don't just fill up your Mad Libs, like storyline with the word failure for everything. Like
Yeah.
do some pondering, do some digging.
Yeah. I've always liked, with husband material and Drew Bow, always like look at it as feedback rather than failure,
Hmm.
you know? And it's so I guess it's more comfortable when we're like, "Oh, no, it's failure," because then we have somebody to blame or something to blame,
Yep.
right? And we're like, "Oh, well, of course I did this," right? And our that negative self-talk and stuff will say, "Well, of course I did that again," or "Of course this," and I'm a failure. And then we label ourselves as failure rather than, "Oh, hey,
Yeah.
I didn't accomplish what I was thinking I was gonna accomplish."
Hmm.
So we can say, "Oh, yeah, I'm a failure," or we can say, "Huh, I wonder why or what happened that I didn't get the result, and was that result even what I really needed?" And
Exactly.
question that, right? I mean, not we say, "Oh, and why were we going for that result?" Right? Were we going for that result because somebody else said that's the result we should get, or that's how we get to a place, right?
Hmm.
And so there's so much more to it, and there's so many nuances. And the only way I think we can get to those is by sitting in it and
Hmm.
allowing our brains, which are even more powerful than AI and any checklist or any, you know, scientist or anybody else who says, "Oh, this is the way to do it." Because guess what? We're all individuals. We
Yeah.
all are shaped by different experiences, different things. We have different burdens, different things. And so what works for me may not work for Pete, and
Exactly.
it may not work for you,
Hmm.
but that's the beauty of life is like, okay, I can take the things that work for me out of this part, and I don't have to like say, oh no, if only one part of that works, I can't, I have to like, nope, that can't be true. I'm going to throw that all away. But
Yeah.
I can take the part out of that. I can take the part out of something else, and we can create our own plans, our own recovery, right? By taking the best parts out of things and saying, you know what, that part doesn't serve me, so I'm going to let go of that.
I love it. I love it. So Pete, sit with it. Do some exploring, do some journaling, like do some deeper dives. Don't just kind of settle for failure. Like,
Yeah.
like figure it out, right? Like
Yeah.
get in there a little bit, clean some stuff up.
You know what? It goes back to one of my favorite things from the early Agents of Recovery podcasts. If you haven't listened to them with Max and Brock and stuff, and it, they embrace the suck,
Hmm.
embrace the suck.
Oh man.
And I even had like little wristband things made, and like one that was one of the things on there. Embrace the
I
suck.
love
Yeah,
it.
sometimes it sucks.
Oh
So
yeah.
so are you going to let that suck control you and say, "Oh, I'm going to be a victim,"
Yeah.
or are you going to say, it sucks, but what can I learn from
What
this?"
can I learn from it? Be the agent. Absolutely. This comes from Russell. Russell asks, talking just a little bit about just really sitting in it, I guess is what you're saying. And he asked, well, how do I build a tolerance for discomfort without turning to the behavior as a fast escape? Because he's talking about, Russell's talking a little bit about, my situation is I feel as though I can't sit in the suck. It's a perfect question to follow up now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's a practical question, Wendell, because the nervous system responds under pressure, right? And tolerance and discomfort is one of the most challenging things ever because as you're saying, sit in it, you're going to have some discomfort. The impulse would be to pull out the phone or jump on the computer to search the porn sites or whatever. And if you can sit in the discomfort of not doing that for a period of time,
Yeah.
you can find out some pretty amazing things. And I think that that's kind of where you start replacing action in a positive light instead of replacing the automatic coping skill with the behavior of looking at the porn or putting the bet down or grabbing the donut, whatever it is behavioral wise, right? So for you, how would we go about describing building tolerance for discomfort without turning to the behavior just right out the gate?
Yeah, I love that question, and it's actually something that, I've been going down kind of this rabbit hole for the last 2 weeks,
Hmm.
just this idea of
Oh my gosh,
emotions and
what you were just talking about, yeah.
yeah, exactly, and, I was actually, on a call with, a husband material, and they do these hot seat calls, and so you're like, "Okay," you can be on there, and they have one of the coaches and therapists there, and he kinda, like, helps you process through some emotions and through some things, and I was talking about, emotions and feeling those emotions rather than stuffing those emotions. And like, because I think a lot of times we're taught and from a young age, right?
Hmm.
At first, your parents are like, you're in a public place and you're a little kid and you're like having a reaction, which is normal, which
Normal.
means you're human, right?
Hmm.
Um, and out of embarrassment or out of shame or whatever it is, your parents, oh no, no, stop doing that, and like, oh, stop crying, and you're taught this. And it's something that, is innocent enough, as a parent, I've done that, like, hey,
Yeah.
stop your crying, or whatever. But
Yep.
um, and so we're kind of conditioned to like not feel emotions and not do that. And so if we don't sit in those emotions, then we're not able to process through them. And so we were talking on this call, and he brought up this thought, and he said there's a study. There's actually a Harvard brain scientist, and I got to hold my phone farther away from me because man, I'm getting old. Those 50-year-old eyes.
I hear you.
But talking about emotions, and it says, this Harvard brain scientist, Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, explains. She says when a person has a reaction to something in their environment, there's a 90-second chemical process that happens in the body. After that, any remaining emotional response is just a person choosing to stay in that emotional loop. And so it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? Basically, it says when we allow our bodies to experience an emotion fully, to allow it to run through us
Hmm.
without interruption or exaggeration, it will be done with its cycle within 90 seconds.
90 seconds, listeners.
90 seconds. And if we stopped right now during the middle of this podcast for 90 seconds, just dead air,
Yeah.
people would be like, wait, did something happen?
They'd
Like,
start looking at their phone. What's going
yeah,
on? Yeah.
but
Hmm.
it's true. And it's kind of this society, that we're in today with, think of how long a reel is. Think
Hmm.
of how long a TikTok is, right?
Yeah.
They're like 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds.
Hmm.
And so we've conditioned our brains to only last, 5, 10, 15 seconds. And then no, we have to have something else fill that space, right? And
Absolutely.
so 90 seconds can feel like an
An
eternity.
hour and a half.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it really can. But if we really pause and look at 90 seconds, it's like 90 seconds is not that long.
Exactly.
But how do we do it?
Well, you and I hear this a lot, and we've heard this in the men's group that distress tolerance is the ability to feel like uncomfortable emotions or urges or situations without immediately trying to escape them, right? So, like in plain terms, I think it's a skill of staying present when you're feeling overwhelmed and choosing not to make the feeling worse by engaging in the compulsive behavior. And so it looks like some pretty heavy duty stuff, but 90 seconds isn't long. But feeling an urge to act, but not doing it right away, that's distress tolerance. Letting discomfort rise and fall without panicking, that's discomfort tolerance.
Yeah.
So I look at this kind of stuff. I think, you guys, it is as simple as waiting,
Mhm.
just pausing.
It
It's Wendell, it's that simple.
Yeah.
Because after 90 seconds, when that wave of distress travels through, you get a fresh view.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, you could be like, okay, I didn't do it. And then in a minute or so later, have it again.
Yeah.
Because your brain's gonna be like, hey, what the hell? Like, we were going down this path
It's
of
used to
reward.
it, right?
You do it again.
Yeah.
90 seconds, that's all. And I think that there's beauty in that. I've never even looked at it that way. But I think like a simple example would be like, notice the urge.
Mhm.
So you feel the urge, you're like, oh, piss. Not treating it as an emergency, but allowing that discomfort just simply exist, meaning sitting with it, and then use a different coping skill until that wave passes. Maybe it's breathing for 90 seconds. Maybe it's tapping on your knee for 90 seconds. Maybe, does it make sense? Like
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
doing something that you change the pattern of thought. When people experience anxiety, Wendell, one of the cures for anxiety is to eat a sour candy. And people are like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But why does it work? It snaps your brain out of it. Your brain's all of a sudden like, well, what is this?
Yeah.
And then it starts pondering that, right? So, you guys, it is literally that simple. But 90 seconds can feel like an eternity when you're brass knuckling, when you're white
It
knuckling
is.
it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it is. And to interrupt, like you said, a process that is automatic in your brain and automatic right now because you've been practicing it since your
you
3 years
become
old or
skilled in
4
it.
years old, right? And
Mhm.
your parents are like, "Stop doing that," and you're like, "Oh, wait." Because you get that negative reaction for the very first time and you're like, your brain makes a note of that, right?
Exactly.
And the more you practice it, the more that's, taught to you, then the more it goes.
The
But
more it becomes a behavior.
yeah, and
Mhm.
and so if that's true, and if it's a learned behavior that way, what's it going to take to get out of it?
You can unlearn it.
It's going to take practice.
Mhm.
And that's the hard part, right? Is like, no, I want an immediate answer, which again is what we've been conditioned to look for and search for. And that's what we find on, social media and like, fast food. Like I don't even have to go out to get my fast food anymore. They can be delivered to my doorstep, and so that's just like all of this stuff. And so what's the answer? The answer is to pause. It's to slow down.
Exactly.
It's to sit in that suck, right? It's to sit in the mud. It's to be like, okay. And it's so interesting as well. You mentioned the word notice, notice what's going on, like pause long enough to notice that. And I love there with internal family systems. Jenna Remersma, she wrote this amazing book, and I love her perspective on things. And she actually just came out with another book.
You are so well read. I am like a Neanderthal. I'm so glad you do that.
Oh my gosh, it's just this passion that I've like when I find
It's
something, I'm like,
awesome.
oh, it's a rabbit hole. I got to go down there. I got
I
to learn
love
more
it.
about it. But she just came out with this other book, and it's trying to explain IFS in a much simpler term because
Mhm.
IFS can be really complicated as you're going down all these things and trying to identify exiles and managers and like all these different things. And sometimes it's like, whoa, my brain's gonna explode. But she has this process now that she's kind of come out with, and she's like, there's three things to try to make it simple. And the first one is notice. Exactly the word you just said.
Beautiful.
It's to notice. Notice what's happening. Notice what I'm experiencing. Notice like this emotion or whatever just came up. Notice that. The second thing is to know. Like, okay, what does this thing want me to know? What does it want me to know? Like, what is it trying to tell me? And then also need. What need is this trying to feel? So notice, know, and
Brilliant.
need. And it's like, okay, so if you can pause it and come down to like and the reason she did
If
this
you
is
use that 90 seconds with
yeah,
those 3
just ask those
questions,
questions. Right.
bloody hell,
Right.
Wendell, that's the answer to the final.
It is. It is.
So then why do you think most of us don't? Why do we not ponder like the why? Does it make sense?
Yeah.
You're right. We've been trained.
Yeah.
We are in an instant gratification world. And if you don't believe me, listeners, if you have a raging headache and you go to your local pharmacy or your grocery store or whatever, and you go down the aisle and you see, you know, Bayer aspirin, but you see maximum strength Bayer aspirin. What are you buying?
Oh yeah, you buy the maximum.
Buy the maximum strength. I want it gone now, right? It's the same stuff.
Well, look at the packaging on the different.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing, but one's flashier and they can
Uh-huh.
charge more for it because it says maximum strength.
And if I have a wicked headache, I don't want to just casually let it go away. I want it maximized to be gone now. And so that's what happens, right? So our brains are convinced that we have to react on everything. We have to act on these compulsions. We don't.
No.
And I think those 3 things, you say it again.
It's
notice, know,
and need.
and need.
Yeah.
See, listeners, those are the questions I think that when you're in that 90-second distress period, if you were to ponder and you were to get into, you'd have some answers. You could literally change the trajectory of where you're headed. And, so we look at this question under those guidelines, distress tolerance, it's going to suck no matter what.
Yeah.
Right. I tell you this all the time too. Like people are afraid to show emotions and cry. And it's like, well, why? Because you can literally only cry for 8 minutes. That's it. You don't have any more moisture in the face to like keep going. And I'm not saying it's not going to hurt or whatnot, but like if you're afraid of ugly crying, you're only going to do it for 5 to 8 minutes. That's it.
Yeah.
Sit with it for a minute.
Yeah.
So I hope that kind of answers the question, because it leads into this next one. And this guy wanted to be anonymous, and I'm going to give you a little bit of pretense. He sent me this. He said, Coach, will you and Wendell please discuss this on the podcast? I listened to your podcast faithfully, and I'm excited to maybe be able to get some help with this. Growing up, bonding with my father meant being a man. I was told I needed to be a man since the time I could walk. Part of being a man was also understanding that I was a heterosexual male, which meant that not only would I be provided pornographic materials, but I was I was taught how to, be intimate with a woman through pornography that my dad shared with me. it became part of my being. And I'm curious, as I'm now trying to separate this because I know the destructive addiction that it's become in my life, and I'm about to lose the things that are most precious. I need to understand what kind of identity am I unconsciously protecting by continuing this behavior. And I think, Wendell, that's a hard one because I've always thought it was the most devastating relationship to bond over negativity. Meaning, if a dad's sharing this stuff because that's what boys do, or a parent saying, "I want my kids to drink in my house because at least I know where they are," I think it can uncover whether that behavior is tied to self-image or control or rebellion or secrecy, and it will keep you stuck and sick because that's how we've learned to bond with our parent. Without that stuff, if we don't use these mechanisms to connect with our parents, maybe we won't have a relationship.
Right.
So he was brought up in this relationship with his father that men are sexual beings, that we are dominant towards women, and that's simply not the case. He's feeling this now as a young adult, and he's thinking, "I'm not liking what I was told I had to be." As we start pulling this back, these what kind of identities is he unconsciously protecting by continuing this behavior? It's a deep and hard question to answer because there's so many moving parts to this. Where do we start by allowing the true self to come forward? Because obviously, what father has told him he needs to be a man is not what he wants to do to become a man.
Yeah.
Where do we start with something like this to rediscover who we authentically are?
Well, first of all, like as you were reading the question, I just had this, response in my body and just like this deep sense of feeling for this question and for the person who submitted it and just this my heart goes out to you and it just that feeling and I've actually heard from other people similar stories and similar things and similar lessons that they were taught, right? And there's this feeling of like, wait, this is kind of like if I go against that, that goes against my relationship with my father, right? And there's like this, so it's much more complex than just like, oh, well, he says this is a man and I have to be a man. No, there's emotional bonds and there's this thing tied to it. And this desire to be seen and loved and heard from my father as well, right? There's all of
Hmm.
that wrapped up in it. But I guess my very first thing would be to say, first of all, congratulations. I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
Because the fact that you're thinking of this question, the fact that you're like, hey, something's not resonating with this. This is what the experience was. This is what he taught me, but it just doesn't resonate. And
Hmm.
so to me, that's like, okay, that is coming from your core. That is coming
Yep.
from yourself. Yourself is saying, this just doesn't feel right.
Hmm.
Right. And so that means, as we go to those questions, like, where do I start? Where do I do that? Again, we kind of go back to like, okay, pause, notice no need. Like, what are we noticing? He's noticing something just doesn't feel right.
Right.
And he needs something a little different. And he's not sure what that is because his definition and the things he's been taught is to be a man, it means X, Y, and Z. Well, but that doesn't feel right at his core. So first of all, I'm proud of you. You're at your
Yeah.
core, you're an amazing person. You're loving, you're caring, and you're noticing that something doesn't feel right. And so celebrate. I want to celebrate with you that fact that you're noticing this. And so first thing, celebrate that. Second, sit with it. Think about it. Like obviously it's not resonating with you.
Exactly.
And so and it's okay. I think the fact that it's not resonating with you means that at its base layer that that's not what a man is.
Yeah.
Like, what is a man? Like, we have this thing, oh, we have to be manly, man. We can't feel emotions. We can't cry. We can't, experience emotions. And it's like, okay, well, who gets to make that up? And, and
Hmm.
and I look back at that and I see that, and I experienced some of this stuff as well. I was afraid to share emotions because I thought that would make me weak.
Right.
Well, the opposite is true.
Hmm.
It's the most courageous thing you can do is to show your emotions, experience them, live through that 90-second window where that physiological change or reaction in your body is doing that because that really is what a man should do. And society says this is a man, you have to be, X, Y, and Z and treat people this way. And unfortunately, we have people who model that behavior and they're applauded and even elected as officials and whatnot. Um, when the opposite, is the truth. I mean,
Hmm.
you feel it at your core. He feels it
Oh
at his
yeah,
core. He knows that that's not what it is.
yeah,
So what is it to be a man? Redefine that. Why
absolutely.
do we have to listen to, this person or that person who says this is what it is, right?
Hmm.
Why can't a man be sensitive? Why can't a man be, celebrated for sharing emotions, right?
Absolutely.
And so I think the more that we're able to sit with that and allow that to happen, then we show to other people that that's okay,
Yeah.
right? And it just kind of, as we do the small things and allow those small things to happen, they start to become bigger. They start to become more habits. And we teach the people, we unburden those things and we're like, okay, and we teach other people that it's okay to sit in that and it's okay to be that way.
Yeah, and I think what happens too when you start looking at these emotional effects that it happens, especially when you're trying to understand kind of who you are as a male, as a man, we get into these situations of like shame and self criticism, right? Like you start feeling like there's a divide in who you authentically are. I think there's a lot of emotional numbing that goes on.
Yeah.
This kid has grown up in a household. And I'm not saying it was pounded into him like 24/7, but I'm sure that there's some emotional numbing going
Oh
on
yeah.
because when if porn becomes kind of a go-to escape, it can train your brain to move away from discomfort instead of processing it, which we just talked about.
Yeah.
And I think that that can make you very, I think, isolated
Mhm.
in how to deal with this stuff. Who do you ask for help with? And I think, well, what's underneath it then? And I wrote this down when he sent this question, and I'm like, well, maybe a useful question for him to look at is what feeling is porn helping you not feel, right?
Yeah.
Stress, loneliness, boredom, rejection, anxiety, anger. I mean, you take your pick. These are all things that most of us, or not all of us, have to deal with. But as a man, we're supposed to just, rub dirt in it and
Suck
move
it up.
on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What changes over time? Like what patterns continue, or what, or what do we do to deviate away from that and start looking at like, all right, how do we practice it as now a way to escape, towards a life that you want? You've got to be able to like maybe have a destination of what do you want.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you said that you're proud of him for even coming out with this,
Yeah.
because it's a hard thing when you're hardwired, and taught and forced that this is what we're supposed to be, is what we're supposed to do. We don't show weakness. We take what we want. Um, if you don't do that and dad sees it vicariously, maybe that relationship won't exist. Maybe he'll be like, well, my son's a pansy,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
like these are some hard takeaways from questions like
It
this.
is, and I think that goes back like that those feelings and like it's hard, right? To think, well, if I do this, then I'm gonna lose this relationship, or it's something that you crave is like this connection, right? Because it's a connection point between
Hmm.
him and his dad, right? It's a connection point, and so the fear of loss of that connection is probably a lot of what goes to do that, and the fact that he asked the question,
Hmm.
I think it shows that it's never sat right with him.
Right.
It's never like, again, and from like that IFS perspective, internal families, like that's his self. His true self feels like this just doesn't sit right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so go back to that true self. And yeah, you know what? Sometimes it's going to cause a loss of relationships and stuff. But if we can come out of that true self and we can approach it from that and say, "Hey dad, I realize this, is kind of what you taught and stuff. And I'm just curious, like where did you learn that from and
Hmm.
who taught you that?" And if we can be how vulnerable that would be to like go to your dad and say, "Hey, I'm just curious, like where did you learn this?" And I'm not coming out of a place of like judgment or anything else like that, but come out of a place of
Hmm.
curiosity and trying to understand where he learned that from. And I'm guarantee it comes back from somebody else said, "Hey, this is what it's like to be a man,"
Hmm.
right? And maybe it never actually resonated with his dad either, but that's all he knew, and he's like, "This is how we deal with things," and
Yep.
he didn't wanna deal with his emotions.
Yep.
And so these legacy burdens that are passed on from each one of, like, all these different generations, if we can be that link that says, okay, I'm going to cut that, be the person who cuts that link so that that burden isn't transferred to the next generation. And we
Hmm.
can say, you know what? It's okay to sit in those emotions. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to do that. Then we're stopping that, legacy that's, been passed on. It's so interesting, this question too, because literally, like, I think it was last night or this morning. I can't even remember when it was. I got up a little too early this morning, but
Yeah.
this guy that I follow, he's talks about men and men's mental health, and just like this role, kind of like we need to quit trying to be these macho men and like, oh, I got everything figured out. But he actually posted this, and he says, you deserve to be in environments that bring out the softness in you, not the survival in you.
Jeez.
And it's like, wait, what? It's
Yeah.
like, you deserve to be like, where are those places that allow you to be soft and to be emotional and to have feelings? Because as men, we're not supposed to have those feelings. We're supposed to be like, yeah, you go back to the caveman, right? Like,
Yep.
but why? Who says that that's the way it has to be? Like, surround yourself with people who allow you to be safe, to share those emotions, to, just to, rather than being in that survival mode, which is fight or flight. Because if you think like the traditional definition of a man, it's like, take what I want, blah, blah, blah. That's a survival. That takes you back to that caveman, like where all they were trying to get was survival. Like,
Yep.
can we say that we've evolved past the survival phase yet? I mean, come on, if we can say, hey,
I like it.
that served its purpose back then, right? But we've evolved, hopefully.
Yeah, we don't need that now, and I think that's part of maybe the answer to that final, because I look at it also window through the lens of like, okay, so he sees this. I'd love to know what the relationship was like, watching his dad to his mom. How did father treat mother? Does that make
Oh
sense?
yeah.
And that's a hard thing because typically we grow up under the umbrella of that's the norm, right? And so, if dad has the old, Playboy calendar hanging in the garage and there's magazines, underneath the shop bench or whatever. And, not just piquing curiosity, but like also kind of like, hey, do whatever you want. It would be interesting to see the dynamic between, his relationship with his dad, relationship with his mom, to what he wants his relationship with his wife to look like, because I think that's where things get really, I think, scary if we don't reel this in. I've worked with people in the past that have only watched, pornography and videos to teach them about sex. And, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't fly in reality that they see. And that definitely wreaks havoc in a relationship. What may look like the standard way to be intimate on a video in real life would probably get you in a pinch and maybe in some emotional trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. And and I mean, to be honest with it, I mean, it's, pornography and the stuff you see in the videos and the movies and stuff, it's all made up. It's fake. It's not,
Yeah,
that's not,
it's not
that's
real
not
love.
real.
Hmm.
You if you do research and stuff into it, a lot of those people are being trafficked.
Hmm.
And it's, in order for them to do the things that they're doing on it, a lot of them are under the influence of drugs and alcohol, and people who've come out, of those industries and talk about the life. It's miserable and it's not pleasurable. And they make it look, pleasurable and exciting and all this stuff. But again, it's a fake, it's an imitation. It's not
Hmm.
real. And we have to look at it that way. And so to expect real life to mirror that, no, that's not the way it is. And it's not the way. And honestly, a relationship between, you and your partner, it needs to be developed between the two of you. You have to have that ability to talk about things, right? And to
Hmm.
talk about, like, okay, and if you could sit with a partner and say, hey, I'm interested in how can I help you? And this is things that help me. And if you could have that level of vulnerability to speak about it and talk about it,
Man,
instead of saying, no, you take this and it's all about you taking and them, filling your needs, which aren't really needs anyways.
I'll
They're
be
just,
honest. Yeah.
yeah. But so if we could get to the point where we talk about it, and I love this, there's a good, coach and therapist in husband material. His name is Doug Carpenter, and he's phenomenal about talking about this. And they actually had in this one of the retreats I went to with husband material, they had a sex education class. And you're like, whoa, here I am,
Hmm.
49 years old, and I'm going to go to sex education class. And you're like, this is kind of weird at
Yeah.
at a retreat for men who struggle with pornography addiction and stuff. And in it, he's like, look, you want to know what works? Talk about it. He's like, I know, like, there's a lot of different things and shame about talking about sex, about talking about what feels good and, whatnot. And he's like, talk to your partners about this, experience it together. That's how you get this intimacy, right? It can be messy, right? But it's like intimacy is like into the messy, like get into the messy stuff,
Mm.
get into this stuff. And that's how you develop and really are a relationship is by talking about it and expressing yourself and hey, this works, this doesn't work, and doing that. And we're so afraid, especially I know with my history and past and, and religious and everything else that goes into that. It's like, okay, well, no, you can't talk about those things. They're taboo, right?
Yeah.
And that's the when we say we can't talk about it, that just because we're uncomfortable or somebody was uncomfortable about it, and so they didn't talk about it, and so they put this burden on us. Oh, you can't talk about it because that made me it's like
Yeah.
as the more we're able to pull away all of that stuff and recognize that the reason why people do the things they do is because they're uncomfortable and they, somebody else taught them that and say, oh, I wonder why it's this way and be curious about it and have that relationship where you can really honestly be intimate and talk about those things. Oh my gosh, how much more real is that? And it's
Oh man,
so amazing.
it is, and I think classifying to yourself, anonymous, what a man is supposed to be in your eyes. Like the society's view of being a man is usually treated by just the performance of tasks and maybe strength and ability to control and responsibilities and emotional restraint. And I don't think that's always the case. I think some social expectations like you got to be strong, you got to provide and protect, you have to stay in control, you got to handle problems alone. That stuff is dumb.
That's
Like,
that's the stuff that keeps you stuck.
seriously, man. Like, you got to be confident. You got to, you got to be sexually competent. You've got to be able to suppress emotions and except for anger, you can show that one. I think the tension behind these expectations are what causes this rift. And so he's probably seeing dad with that blueprint and thinking, that's not what I want, right? Like a lot of men are asked to be emotionally available, but they get vulnerable when that happens
Yeah.
because they're afraid of the why. Like, why do you want me to go there?
Yeah.
Sensitive, but not soft. Like, how do you do that? How do you be sensitive, but not feel like you're soft, right? I think that defining what you want to be as a as a man, as a husband, as a brother, as a son, I think it's going to come with some costs if we don't dive into the authentic parts of what we want to become. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Oh yeah, completely.
It's a hard thing to wrap your head around. So I think being disconnected from, the traditional, like your dad's traditional view of what a man is, might mean you got to go back to the blueprint and find
Yeah.
like, who am I authentically?
Yeah.
Because I mean, you sharing emotions, being available, that doesn't make you not a man.
No.
Yesterday I was having a podcast in here with a guy. His name's Patrick, and he's got a golf program that helps people overcome addictions and stuff with golf, and it's amazing. And both of us are in here talking about really sensitive stuff about people we've lost, and we're both just bawling in here.
Yeah.
But it was funny because we didn't break a stride. Like I'm tearing up, he's tearing up, we're talking, and at the end, I'm like, dude, that was kind of interesting, And I would not think that Patrick wouldn't isn't a man. I mean, he's an amazing guy, but like, we got to get out of that mindset that like we're not supposed to fill in the blank. Don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah. It's those expectations.
100%.
It's how and that's one thing that's really just been so freeing for me in this recovery journey, especially over the last year and a half, is letting go of all of these things that I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to do this. You should do this. You should do
You
this.
whip out your man handbook,
Yeah,
like,
right. It's like,
yeah,
oh, this is what it's defined as. And it's like, why? Like, who is the authority that says this is how
who
you
wrote
are a
this book?
man, right?
Hmm.
And it's, all these things, again, legacy burdens that have been put on us and like, oh, this is how you have to act and everything else. And rather than do that, like, I think if you can go back to that self, that core self, and like, no, again, it goes back, notice, no need. What do I notice? When I'm noticing that this doesn't feel authentic, it doesn't
Hmm.
feel right. I feel like I need something else. And so be curious about those things and let go of these expectations that everybody else puts on you and you've put on yourself. And you're like, I follow this because somebody said it. Well, who said it? And what were they thinking? What were they trying to promote? You know, and it's like,
Hmm.
and just think about that and eh, trust yourself.
Yeah.
Sit in it long enough to trust yourself. You shared you put a post on school just yesterday
Yeah.
about being compassionate
Compassionate. Uh-huh.
and this idea of being compassionate with yourself and being compassionate with other people and be compassionate with yourself
Hmm.
like ask those questions, don't look at it as failure, look at it as feedback, be curious about it and like one of the most courageous things you can do is to say, hey, this just doesn't feel right. And so
Yeah.
what is a man should what qualities should we celebrate about being a man? We should celebrate men who are vulnerable, men who
100%.
say, hey, I don't have it all figured out.
Can you
That's like the
imagine?
most courage. Like if being
Yeah.
courageous is what a man is, how courageous is it to show up and say, I feel like I don't have everything together. I don't have all the answers. And I don't know everything. It's
Hmm.
so much more courageous to do that and to be vulnerable than to say, oh, then make up stuff and say, oh, yeah, I got it figured out and it's my way or the highway, and it's just like, that's just all that is a mask.
I know so
It's
many
all
men that do
masking
that. Yep.
insecurities. Yeah, exactly. So,
I know so many that do that. It's like it's almost like painful for them to admit that they don't know something.
oh, God.
And my thing is when people in my group say I don't know, it means they don't want to think.
Yeah.
So for real, if you don't know something, instead of shooting from the hip, you say, I'm not sure about that. Let me get back to you. Because to me, I think that would be even better because that means whatever I've asked of you that you don't know, you're going to take time to go search it out.
Mhm.
Right. So I think that,
I think it also says this, not only that, but like rather than me, like when I respond that quickly, it's like, oh, I'm going to regurgitate something else that somebody else
exactly.
said. And so I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, that sounds good. And like, and I think there's that part of it. And when you say like that, like, I'm not sure, but that's actually a great question. I'm going to ponder that. I'm going to think about it. Well, then to me, that shows that like, oh, you're not gonna just spit out something that somebody else,
Hmm.
said this is the way it should be.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I love it. I mean, you look at the current political temperament right now, and whenever someone states a claim or something, it's like, "Where did you get your research?" Like anyone's researching at the Library of Congress, all right? You guys are doing that on Fox News or
fact check.
CNN or
Yeah.
yeah. No one goes and does research, so. Yeah, I think it's okay to not have opinions on things right away. To be able to like say, I'm gonna look at it and see what I come up with.
Yeah.
And I think that's what truly makes a man to be steadfast, I guess, in your wisdom, be willing to look elsewhere, be open to changing of mind. Like, one of the coolest things we have the ability to do as humans is change our mind.
Yeah.
Like what once might have been, yeah, I agree with that, could later on be like, I can't believe we did that. That sucks. You know what I'm saying?
So true.
And it doesn't mean you're a flip flopper. It means that you're maturing and you're growing and you're allowing your mind to expand its viewpoints on certain things, right?
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. I think when we dig our heels in and say, "Hey, this is what I was taught. This is how I learned. This is, truth according," it just we're forcing ourselves to say we can't change. We're forcing ourselves to say that my way is the only way,
Yeah.
right? And the opposite is true. Is couldn't be more true. Like it's like, okay, well, maybe there somebody else has a perspective and maybe
Hmm.
I can learn something from that perspective rather than digging my heels and say, nope, my way is the right way and XYZ. Well, it may be the right way for you, but maybe it's not for somebody.
Man, I was working with this guy a few years ago, and his father was the old school mind that once you're done with college, you settle into one position and you make it your life. And he said that I'm having such trouble with my dad's relationship with me because he's looking at me as a failure because I'm going an entrepreneur route and he's creating these things that I guess would help like electric cars charge or something. I don't know. It was kind of weird. But it sounded amazing because like he's got a plan. But in his dad's eyes, it was that's not a safe way to go. You have to do it my way. You have to work for a certain wage. You got to save more than you spend. And he's like, this guy's like, I'd rather be happy and be able to do my own thing. So do you risk, like frustrating the relationship with your father? Or, do you take a knee and do what he says? Like,
Or do you go to your father and say, "Hey, I understand this worked for you,
mm-hmm,
and help me understand why this worked for you."
mm-hmm,
And then you may learn that, okay, well, the reason he did that was because he grew up or his parents grew up in the depression, and this was
mm-hmm.
the way they were taught, like, you
Oh,
have to
yeah.
do it this way, right? And try to understand that that's where it's coming from, and then try to explain, say, "Hey, I understand where you came up with this belief," and you say, "Hey, this is the only way," but and I appreciate you, the protector part inside of you, dad, who says this, you want me to be protected, and this is how you felt protected was by this.
Yep.
And it's okay for me to like kind of go away from that, and just this is why I don't feel like that's the right route for me,
Yep.
And so again, you have to be vulnerable to have those conversations. And it's,
Absolutely,
much
man.
easier sitting here in a podcast, or in a studio and say, "Oh, this is how you do it," but in life, it's obviously not that simple.
It's not, and I think maybe the first step to answer your question, Mr. Anonymous, would be to simply define who you want to be.
Mhm.
Obviously, like Wendell says, we're proud of you for bringing this up. That means that you have seen things that you don't agree with, and you don't have to just do it because you were told,
Yeah,
you know. And in
love that.
fact, you don't even have to rub your dad's nose in it. You can
No.
just simply become something better because you want something
Yeah.
better.
Well, and I think people see that. Even though originally, or they may think, "Oh, no, you have to do it this way." I think people, as they see you become more authentic, as they see you be more in touch with yourself, like who you are at your core, who you
Hmm.
are at yourself, and you're genuine and you're authentic, people feel it.
Oh
They
yeah.
see it. They see a change. They see these things. And while it may not be their idea of like, this is the way you have to do it, they notice something's different. And if they can notice something's different, then maybe that piques that curiosity in them to say, "Hey, it's a little different,"
Yep.
and even if it doesn't, even if nobody else changes, but you feel more true to yourself and your core, then you're winning,
Yeah. Yeah. You're
right?
doing it.
You're winning.
100%. Man, I love the Q&A questions. We got more. We'll get to them. Please keep sending them in. Wendell, appreciate that feedback today, man. Like there was some good stuff in
Yeah.
there. And it's funny because again, we come rolling in and Wendell didn't know we were doing Q&A until about 2 minutes before we started. But it is kind of funny how some of these reflect on stuff that we're learning and doing anyway, like
Yeah.
stuff that you brought in and talked about sitting in it for 90 seconds and whatnot. It's funny how some of these universal principles are kind of like one size fits all if you'll get down into the nitty gritty with it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It
Like,
really is.
guys, we're not that complicated. We don't have to freaking muck this process up. We can definitely use the skills and the techniques we're learning through the podcast and through your interactions for your betterment. So
Yeah.
it's good stuff,
Yeah.
man.
Looking forward to next week. I think
Yep.
we're going to have Drew on the
It'll
podcast.
be our very first guest on the Agents of Recovery,
Yeah.
even from the early days. So I'm looking forward to that too. So you guys will be in a real treat here in a week after this episode airs. So
Yeah.
you know what, listeners, thank you so much. Jump on the school app, download it, get some help there. Wendell and I can be in contact through there. Wendell is now a certified addict athlete coach, by the way. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And I saw that you got accepted into a master's program. This man's going to be making waves. We'll all be working for him one day. But we're excited, Wendell. Congratulations on becoming an addict athlete recovery coach. If you would like to become one, jump on addict2athlete.org. It's a whole other set of worms. Go listen to the Addict to Athlete podcast. But until then, we wish you the best in hopes that you'll become one of us, an agent of your recovery. Perfect. Oh, dude, that was really good, man.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's funny when people submit questions. It's through the Addict to Athlete website. Yeah. And it's funny because it's like it comes through anonymous, but I can see their email. So I'm like, oh, hey, Mikey from St. George. I can kind of see why this is a problem for you. it's kind of funny. I'm like, oh man, like technology. But yeah, I mean, I've seen that happen so many times where dads are like, making that stuff available, getting the kids to have a drink with them. I think there can be no worse thing a parent can do than to use drugs with their kids. Like
Well, it's
they look at it as a bonding tool, and it's really
yeah, and
death.
it's a misguided attempt for them to, I think, really just kind of like rationalize their behavior, right? And like
Yeah.
it's to make them feel more secure and like, well, at least if I'm doing it, if I can get somebody else to do it with me, then it's not as bad. Or
Yeah,
and it's their attempt to get their needs met, and
that's really
feeling insecure, and so like,
that's really
oh,
what it is.